The Amazon basin has a right to the distinction of being the planet's most dangerous area. Is there anything else there besides dangerous creatures? However, some of the most dangerous predators on the Earth have coexisted, or rather survived, with humans. This is about how an anaconda's regular day looks. It rises from the bed, makes its way to the sea, sees a nice caiman, and savours breakfast. Although occasionally the water is truly dry, the snake is now effective for a week. When the Amazon River becomes shallow during a flood, floating islands start to develop on their surface. They're made up of a dense mass of floating, sinking, and eventually coalescing into enormous disks of aquatic and semi-aquatic plants. The 1,250-member Yawanawa tribe, which lived in the Brazilian Amazon, was never troubled by snakes. This tribe is said to have never suffered a single victim from a deadly snake bite in all of its recorded existence. That is, while snakes bit them, each sufferer was effectively treated with the use of botanicals, specifically because of the knowledge of more than 2,000 medicinal plants that have been passed down through the generations. Even I couldn't discover such plants on Google, but through the years the Yawanawa came to understand their healing abilities and put them to good use. These unidentified plants could hold the secret to additional treatments for the ailments that plague humanity. We're currently exploring a deep forest to locate a lake teeming with electric eels while scientists are working on it. Let me explain if it isn't frightening enough. It's strange that there are over 100 adult electric eels living in a small lake because eels are often thought of as solitary animals, yet these ones have learned not only to coexist but also to form groups in order to hunt. Small fish first congregated in packs, then approximately 10 eels formed a hunting party like wolves and shocked their prey. Given that this electric eel is a fish and that fish rarely hunt in packs, that is incredibly uncommon behavior. Of course, a person who would unintentionally fall into the lake would also find this unsafe. Being shocked by a single eel is one thing, but being attacked by a group of eels is quite another. Here is what I discovered after wondering what discharge these 10 eels might create when they work together. One of these eels can create a discharge of up to 860 volts, which implies that 10 of them may produce 8,600 volts, according to scientist David D. Santana. This corresponds to about the same voltage needed to power 100 light bulbs. How about water that physically boils? This dangerous water may be found in a river that's roughly 5.5 miles long in the center of the Peruvian Amazon. True, there are just 3.8 miles of hot water on the lower half of the river, but trust me, this is plenty. Most of the flow is hot enough to kill you, especially during the dry season, but not immediately. Small animals, reptiles, and amphibians frequently fall in and are cooked alive. In the end, all that is left of them are their bones. The water may occasionally exceed 200 degrees Fahrenheit. You must proceed with considerable caution as you stroll along the edge of this scalding river. Maybe you're wondering why the river even started to boil in the first place. After all, there are no neighboring volcanoes or geothermal sites. In all honesty, experts don't fully understand why the water boils up to such an abnormal temperature. The most likely explanation holds that rainfall enters deep crevices as the crust of the planet approaches the mantle where it boils. So it just runs through the forest while attempting to cook anything in its path. You know what truly surprised me though? The villagers use this river for bathing. They do swim there and survive. Okay, so this is only occurring after a lot of rain when the river's hot water is diluted by cool water. Other times, the river's water is utilized to prepare meals and make tea. That certainly seems practical. Early in the morning, you arrive at the river, scooping boiling water into a cup while cooked anacondas float by. Amazing. Oymyakon in eastern Russia is as cold as it can get. The small town has 500 inhabitants and its temperatures are between -90 and -81 Fahrenheit or -68 Celsius and -63 Celsius. You'd be better placed on the red planet than on this place. This makes it even harder to survive. Even when water pipes freeze, most homes are forced to have latrines instead of toilets. Crops can't grow, so the diet is mostly comprised of frozen meat and fish. If you ever have a flat tire or lose your keys, your life could be in danger if outside in the cold. More so, a fire has to be lit for several days so that the ground is warm enough for someone to be buried. The only thing that degrades this utopia is mosquitoes. Naturally, they don't reside everywhere in the Amazonian forest. For instance, there are hardly any mosquitoes along the Rio Negro tributary. This is a result of the river's acidic pH, but Rio Branco is a mosquito haven due to its mineral-rich waters. It's hard to avoid mosquitoes at these times of day since they prefer to hunt during night, dawn and dusk. Yellow fever, dengue, chikungunya and Zika virus are all spread by mosquitoes, and it's the specific species of mosquito that spreads malaria, the female Anopheles, which exclusively bites between 9 p.m. and 5 a.m. However, you may argue that there are inhabitants in these woodlands. They may contract a fatal illness at any time, right? Well, that's both yes and no. The Korowai tribe, which is located in Indonesia, has come up with an incredible remedy for this issue. They construct homes in trees. Maybe one of you guys did something similar when you were younger? You may create a conventional coral-wide home by simply raising it numerous times. Mosquitoes cannot reach this height, yet these houses can house up to 12 people, including pets. It also protects them from floods, hostile neighbors, and maybe some paranormal activities. That's because the majority of these homes are raised 26 to 39 feet above the ground on poles. The tribes of the Amazon use somewhat of a different strategy to ward off mosquitoes. Members of the Kurubu tribe apply clay to their skin. Vegetable dyes, which are also effective insect repellents, are preferred by other tribes. Additionally, they draw stripes on the body, which is quite helpful. Even so, researchers carried out a study gathering data and reached a definitive result. For any bloodsuckers, you appear twice as appetizing when you aren't striped. Zebra stripes, incidentally, function similarly. Actually, this Kurobo tribe, or series of Kurobo tribes, is a fascinating illustration of a society that lives in virtually total isolation. That is, they have no notion of what's going on in the outside world. If you try to enter their realm, you risk losing your life. They have their own universe. In the Amazonian forest, there are further uncontacted tribes. One tribe that appears to be doing pretty well is found in the Brazilian state of Acre. They cultivate food, construct shelters, use arrows and spears for hunting, and have no desire to blend in with the rest of humanity. A helicopter hovering above their settlement was met by one of the tribes with a hail of arrows. That may have served as a very obvious message. The most intriguing aspect is that some of these uncontacted tribes utilize steel weapons. Consider a tribe that Brazilian authorities refer to as the isolated Indians of the Upper Humaisha. They've reportedly been invading towns and snatching axes and machetes since 1910, according to reports. Because it has occurred frequently and because stolen metal weapons have been used for so long, they've all long been ingrained in their society. But with the use of the tools, it was able to clear enough forest to plant more food and survive. And as I previously stated, these people aren't going to share their comfortable existence with anyone, even if it's at a Neolithic level or even if the visitor merely intended to offer assistance. Expert on remote Amazonian tribes, Reale Francesano has spent his entire life defending them. He passed away while he was nearing a group of native people. He was fatally wounded by an arrow that struck him directly above the heart. You may see why the residents attempted to avoid hostile neighbors after learning about raids and these kinds of situations. In addition, I discovered that isolated tribes might occasionally engage in conflict. The tribes of Sephora excavate underground caverns that are quite deep. That's really practical. It offers defense against both people and animals, as well as maybe satellite photos. Okay, let's give everyone a break. We may all be fairly dangerous no matter how secluded we are. Let's return to the main topic of this channel. Consequently, a fish that can enter a human body. Introducing the candiru, a little freshwater fish that can only be found in the upper Amazon and Orinoco basins. Candiru consumes fish blood as food. It's challenging to identify in murky water since it frequently resembles a transparent worm. But the stories concerning the candiru's fascination with human genitalia are the most gruesome and fascinating at the same time. For instance, locals sometimes advise visitors to never pee in the water since a little candiru can crawl up in the same location. The fish is quite slick. Additionally, it possesses spines close to its mouth that allows it to stick to its victim. Once inside, the parasite bites until it locates an appropriate blood supply and starts to feed. The best case scenario is really that. The good news is that despite numerous reports of candiru assaults, there are surprisingly few confirmed instances. These are myths, superstitions, or tasteless tales according to some scholars. In any event, the local people continue to create unique protection from coconut shells and palm leaves with tiny holes for human requirements. You know, it's better to be safe than sorry. They're unsure of what the official science has to say about this, but American marine biologist Stephen Spotty concluded that even if a person discharges themselves in a stream where a candiru is present, the likelihood of an attack is quite low. The likelihood is comparable to getting hit by lightning and devoured by a shark at the same time. That is, if the unfortunate swimmer is not swimming at the mouth of the Catatumbo River, then it seems rather safe. The world's most lightning-prone location is there in Catatumbo River. Here, there are thunderstorms at least 160 evenings a year. This number can sometimes reach 300. They last for 10 hours each day and flash between 16 and 40 times per minute. Well, it's evident that with thunderstorm activity this high, the likelihood of dying from a lightning strike is far higher here than everywhere else. Swimming is not recommended here. Thank goodness there are no sharks in Catatumbo. Goodbye for now.